afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I am Megan Hunter. I'm the President and CEO of the Morris County Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Corporation. At the Morris Chamber, we continue to connect, convene, facilitate, educate, and advocate on your behalf. And now we're fulfilling our mission virtually. Our mission is your success. And we continue to provide information for your business, your nonprofit, and your community to succeed. Today, it is my pleasure to welcome and host First Lady Tammy Murphy and the Executive Officer of the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund, Josh Weinrich. Allow me to introduce them briefly before I turn it over to them for the presentation on the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund, meeting the needs of our most vulnerable communities. Tammy Snyder Murphy brings a wealth of public and private sector experience. As First Lady of New Jersey, her policy initiatives have sought to improve infant and maternal health outcomes, incorporate climate change throughout the K-12 state education standards, and increase angel investing in women-led businesses. She currently serves as Secretary and Charter Member of the Climate Reality Action Fund, organized by former Vice President Al Gore, and is chair of the New Jersey's professional women's soccer team, Sky Blue FC. She also serves as the trustee on 2 education boards, a health system, and a transatlantic relations board. Over the years, she has worked with nonprofits, think tanks, and other organizations focused on environment, education, healthcare, youth, and family services. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in English and Communications from the University of Virginia. Josh Weinrich serves as the Chief Executive Officer of the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund. He is a career finance executive. He retired in 2004 after 20 years on Wall Street. He currently serves as the chairman of the board of the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, and he is chairman of the board of Leeds West and an independent director of E-Trade Financial Corporation. He previously served in other roles as a board of directors, and he's a graduate of Cornell. He holds an MBA from the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School of Business, and he lives in Summit with his wife. So thank you both for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to you for the presentation.
Thank you so much, Megan, and thank you to all of you in Morris County for having us join you today. We are really honored to be here, and thank you for taking the time to learn a little bit about our fund. I'm going to quickly give you an overview as to why we're here, what we're doing, and then we can talk about some of our priorities and what we're working on right now. The New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund was created almost 6 months ago now. Phil and I had seen what was going on around the world and realized that we were obviously going to have a surge in need across New Jersey as this pandemic or as this then virus hit the United States. Clearly, I think every single person we know and all of you have found that this has been the case. We have we've been working across the entire state, across all 21 counties over the past 6 months, and trying to really help those who really were impacted most by this COVID pandemic. Who are we? We are basically a group of 21 board members, and those board members are a mix of private individuals and representatives from different corporations or foundations. We've had an overwhelming groundswell of support for this organization. We were very fortunate because in the initial stages, we had 3 founding donors who stepped up in the form of Ray Chambers, the David Tepper Foundation, and then the Overdeck Foundation. So we really benefited from their initially coming on and agreeing that this was something that we should be doing. We now have, like I said, a number of foundations across the state, many people from Morris County, many organizations from Morris County who are working together with us. We are every dollar that we have raised goes directly to the front lines. We are very fortunate in as much as this, probably the silver lining from this pandemic is that all of these different individuals and organizations came together seamlessly and have worked either pro bono or somehow we've had any expenses that have occurred underwritten. So literally every dollar that we raise goes right back out into New Jersey. I give you by way of example, Spencer Stewart did a pro bono search for us, helped us identify our awesome chief executive officer. You've got him staring at you, Josh, right there, and Josh in turn is working pro bono and also supporting our fund financially. Then we've also had McKinsey, who has been helping us with strategy off and on throughout time. They also have worked pro bono, as well as a number of our comms team. We had one comms team for the first 4 months, and now we've switched over and are working with MWW. So we are really fortunate to have them by our side. In fact, they are the ones who paved the way for our talking with you today. So thank you for that. So really, we have done a number of things over the course of time. We started out originally saying that we would do our own research. We felt that food security, you can see on the slide right now, food security was one of our very initial concerns. And so we actually did a survey ourselves and went out not only to the food banks, where Josh has an extensive background, but also beyond that, we reached out to all of the pantries and shelters across all the counties in New Jersey to make sure that they were stabilized in the early stages of this pandemic. I will tell you that the good news is when we sent that survey out, we were asking for kind of 30 to 90 days. How were you going to be doing? And we weren't looking for supporting operating costs, but what we were doing is trying to help them wherever there was a surge in their expenses due to this pandemic. We heard from 30% of those organizations, and they said they were fine, but that meant 70% were not. We ended up giving out hundreds of donations ranging from $5,000. I think the highest, Josh can correct me, was just over maybe $125,000 to these various organizations across the state. At that point in time, we tried to determine, what we thought we would open up our website and have people apply, organizations apply directly for support from us. What we found very quickly is that within about a week, we had about 1,000 applications online, and we realized that while some of them were exceedingly needy, all of them were fantastic organizations. A, some of them were not aligned with our mission, but B, more importantly, we wanted to be here for those who were going to be most impacted and those who had the least resources. And we realized that many of the organizations that had the wherewithal to apply to us were not necessarily the same organizations that they were not the ones that really needed our attention. So while we did answer the bell and we tried to help as many of those as we could, we kind of changed tacks at that time and decided that we would start going out and really looking to work together in this space and figure out exactly where the gaps were between what the government was able to provide and what was already being provided on the ground. And we have subsequently given across a number of areas, which we'll go through momentarily. We've had an incredible outpouring of support, and many of you may have seen, we did an event, it's called Jersey for Jersey, and we were very fortunate because, as you can see, John Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen were numbers 1 and 2 who stepped up and said, yes, we are here, we want to support and help get the word out. The notion behind Jersey for Jersey was really to give a virtual hug to our entire state. This came at a time when everybody was being forced indoors. It was the first month, and I'm not only feeling alone, but feeling a little scared. There was a lot of concerns, as there are now, about mental health and other things, but we just really wanted to give a hug to the state of New Jersey and really show off that Jersey pride while also lauding our frontline workers. This event alone enabled us to raise about $6 million, and we got great exposure. We had an outpouring of support. We have so much talent across New Jersey, as I likely need not tell anyone on this call, but we really benefited from all of these artists stepping up, whether it's, you know, Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart and Chris Rock, to you name it, in terms of the music industry and more, actors. It was extraordinary. So we raised about $6 million, and this event, this single event, helped launch us and put our name out there and enabled us to really attract the individual donors, which we so desperately needed. They're the bread and butter of all of our fundraising activities. We now have we have over 60,000 individual donors. And over the last 6 months, we've raised $38 million, which obviously is a lot of money. I believe of the $38 million we've raised, those 60,000 donors represent over 40% of the funds we've raised. So that's anybody who gave literally from $1 to, in some instances, 7-figure gifts. And obviously, the bulk of the people are closer to the $1 than they are to the $7 million gifts. We will take any and all, but it really just goes to show the groundswell of support for our organization, not only here in New Jersey, where we've had contributions from every single county, but we've also had contributions to the fund from every single state in the United States and 12 foreign countries. We are really working across the state. Initially, we thought we would be focused only in northern New Jersey, where the pandemic was clearly impacting and impacted initially. And what we have found is obviously every single person has been impacted in some way, shape, or form, whether it's their healthcare or economically. So we are now literally working across all 21 counties. I think I'm going to take a break right there, and I'm going to let Josh pick up for a second and talk about some of the things that we've been working on. Josh, you're muted.
I was just practicing. Thanks, Tammy. Just picking up on one of the things Tammy mentioned at the beginning, when we started out figuring out how we could have the quickest and most impactful effect on those in need, we assembled a team of foundations. And I just want to mention, it was the Tepper Foundation, MCJ, the Community Foundation of New Jersey, which has been an incredible partner, RWJ, Dodge, Victoria, Burke, and Fund for New Jersey. And those folks, as we were building this fund, came together to help us evaluate. You can imagine we're trying to identify the greatest need and move quickly and be thoughtful and impactful. And I just want to, I have such a debt of gratitude, the amount of hard work and people who came together in that moment to make that happen and create the critical mass that we needed to make those important grants was amazing. I think we're, if I wanted to touch on some of the things now that we moved towards. Recent initiatives that we've completed or in work, are still some of them in process, in the area of housing stability. We all have been reading about and know that evictions are a real crisis in the state, that upwards of 400,000 people renters are at risk of losing their homes. And so we are supporting a program to provide counseling and pro bono legal support to people facing eviction, to help make sure people understand, various alternatives and options, and where possible provide soft landings there. In the arts area, we were very fortunate. As one of our board members, Joan Recknitz, made a very generous $500,000 matching gift grant to us. And so we matched that with $1 million and made a challenge grant that we made to the New Jersey Arts and Culture Recovery Fund. I know everyone knows how important arts and culture are to our society, to our state, to our lives. You might not know that the nonprofit arts organizations generate close to $700 million in economic activity in our state. So in addition to being so important for so many reasons, we really wanted to do something to help ensure the viability of these organizations, and we know that will be a really important part of recovery. The Arts and Culture Recovery Fund is still raising funds, and they're doing great. And so for those, I would encourage you, for you supporters of the arts, you please find them and contribute. We mentioned here diapers and feminine products. It's a common need that, pre-pandemic, and where really 1 in 3 families have trouble affording diapers, and 1 in 4 women have trouble affording feminine hygiene products, and that's just our run rate. So these problems are exacerbated by COVID, and so we partnered with the food banks in Hillside and with Fulfill and the Food Bank of South Jersey to combine to say, how can we create some surge resource to buy diapers and feminine hygiene products. That project is underway. I'm really, really happy that we're making great progress. And I think our hope is that this will become an annual drive. Again, once we've raised awareness and helped, soften the immediate need, we of course want to have long-term sustainability. And so I hope that program exists going forward. In terms of aiding teachers, it's another program that we've contributed $250,000 to. We'll talk about the digital divide in a moment, but as you know, we're working with districts and superintendents, but teachers are, as have moved into a hybrid, formation in many districts where we're, doing remote learning as well as in classroom. Teachers are forced to be innovative and creative and find ways to, meet the needs of their children. And so there's a program, Donors Choose, that we help support, fund, where teachers are able to identify some of their greatest needs, and you can go online and help match our $250,000. And so many of those matches have already happened, but that is something that is still out there. And we are focused on districts that have primarily the underprivileged school districts, characterized by 75% free and reduced lunch. If we go to the next slide, these are areas that we are working on right now. And one of the things I'd like to highlight, that in addition to supporting these organizations, we really want your help to raise awareness, to bring others to, because these are, as you can see, areas that will need attention, constant attention for a long time. In the childcare area, again, prior to COVID, in the state, we really did have difficulties providing proper childcare to all those who need it, and that is not invented in New Jersey. That's a national problem. With COVID, that has really become a crisis. I mean, in New Jersey, we have 4,000 child care centers, and with the COVID protocols and reducing how many children you can put in a room, of course, over half of those are at risk of collapsing. And so what we are looking to do, we're working on a very innovative program we're excited about that will change the supply dynamic of childcare to provide high quality care with a hub and spoke model. And we are hopeful that, lots of times in crisis, you're trying to just repair, duct tape and Band-Aids. And here we're actually trying to create a model that we think will have national significance. And in the, if you will, in the heat of the battle, if you will, we're really looking to try to help reinvent this model. So you'll hear more about this, I hope, in the ensuing weeks and months and years to come. Digital divide is something that I know all of you are aware of. I think internalizing what it's like for children not to be able to have connectivity, either because they don't have devices and or they don't have Wi-Fi or internet. And then, of course, if you're not in school, it makes that even worse. So we first worked with Trenton, and we were delighted. We found in Trenton that they had, this is early on, I think, relatively early in the crisis. And Chromebooks had been distributed to everyone in the district, but there were 1,200 families who did not have Wi-Fi. And so the Pandemic Relief Fund went out and committed to try to make sure every one of those families had Wi-Fi. And then thanks to some generous donations, people joined us in that, and we were able to complete that project early on. Subsequent to that, now we are expanding our efforts, and we're working with many districts. And I just want to give a shout out to the hard work that the superintendents and staffs are doing in the schools. They are also just improvising, and they're in varying states of dealing with the challenges in front of them. But we're finding we're able to help fill gaps similar to what Tammy mentioned by either providing hardware and sometimes and also connectivity. Remembering that in some districts, when you're diverting resources to bridge the digital divide, it leaves a hole elsewhere. And so we're delighted to be able to be partnering with so many districts to help support there. And we're allocating between $2 and $3 million to make that happen. Women and minority-owned small businesses. As we know, small business is a critical part of recovery, providing jobs and pride, and it's something that is intuitive to all of us. And women and minority-owned businesses got hurt the hardest, in time of crisis such as this. So we are working with a number of organizations who specifically support women and minority-owned businesses, and look forward to making some grants in that area in the very near future. Mental health is top of mind. As we all know, it's one of the things that really requires incremental attention now, given COVID. And we're working with as I say, a number of organizations. We're trying to figure out how we can best leverage our resources to have an impact there. And then I'll finish, you see capacity grants here. It comes full circle. By capacity grants, we're referring here to supporting the networks, the food providers, the basic needs. And as Tammy pointed out at the beginning, we started there, for obvious reasons. It starts with food. And as you see, what we've done at the Pandemic Relief Fund is to try to make pinpoint, investments and support areas that we can help to raise the awareness so others can follow and help to deliver those. But we, of course, don't know the path that the pandemic is going to take. We can anticipate there will be other waves, and that basic needs are still going to be front and center. And so I'd like to end on that by reminding everybody to keep an eye on that. That is something that we know, we've seen it. You can have a huge impact by supporting that. And so we have that as top of mind for us as well. Let me pause there and see, Tammy, if there's anything you'd like to add to that before we open up for questions.
No, I think you captured everything. I mean, one point I was remiss on saying is we really did have and do have an incredible team of dedicated staff, of incredible trustees, and we are really fortunate that our state really cares about one another. And I just wanted you all to know we do not take that for granted whatsoever. We are really excited that we've been able to fill in this niche, which is kind of not supported anywhere else, I don't believe, across the state. But we are not taking anything for granted. So thank you for having us, and we would love to answer questions if there are any questions, Megan.
Wonderful. Thank you for that presentation. So I just want to remind participants to please enter your questions in the Q&A. So we'll be taking them momentarily. So Josh, you mentioned that you continue to raise money, and obviously there unfortunately might be some longevity to this crisis. Could you talk a little bit about how you continue to assess the need? Obviously you have some powerhouse members on your board. Are you regularly communicating with them on what they're seeing on the ground? So how do you make those assessments going forward?
Yeah, yes, thanks. It's one of, I think, the greatest strengths of the Pandemic Relief Fund is by we immediately connected with the relief organizations on the ground. And I also want to just give a huge shout out to them. They are, they were here before the pandemic, and they are going to be here after the pandemic, doing incredible work. And they know their clients and markets and the issues they have. They continue to be eyes and ears to us. And we've extended that with our board because we have a lot of connectivity. And Megan, I think that is one of the things that allowed us to, because it always hurts, you can't finish any of these projects. They're mammoth, and being able to have an impact and then turn your attention to something else does, as I mentioned, require some precision. And it really comes from having so many people, by us asking questions and taking that feedback, and that allows us to, that guides us in terms of where we land.
Great, thank you. First Lady, I don't know, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's Josh really covered it. I think that I could see where you were heading with other questions, but let's see if anybody else has specific questions we can answer, and like to be here to help.
So we have a question from Jessica Padilla Gonzalez, who runs our housing partnership here in Morris County. She asked, are any funds specifically allocated for rental relief for tenants? If so, how can an agency like ours, a HUD-approved agency, connect our clients to those agencies? And is there a list?
Yeah. No, at present, what we're supporting is the counseling and pro bono legal support, and not direct relief.
Okay.
And we're hoping to touch 250,000 people in that way, and we think it's we talked about and thought about direct relief, and Tammy may want to touch on it. We were very happy we were able to provide $6 million in direct relief to undocumenteds, where we felt the most vulnerable, and from that experience, which we were really delighted to be able to participate and help drive, we looked at the leverage we thought we could get through counseling in this area, and we're hoping to leave direct relief to others.
Yeah, I think I will just jump in on that for 1 second and just share. There are 2 organizations we're really working with on the fund in terms of the housing stability. One is the Housing and Community Development Network of New Jersey, and the other one is Volunteer Lawyers for Justice. So those are the 2 entities that we are, there are on the ground partners, and they are working explicitly in the eviction area. And on Josh's last point about the $6 million that we were able to deploy across the state for undocumented neighbors, this was really something that we were incredibly excited about. This is where we were approached by a non-New Jersey entity that actually was interested in helping with the undocumented. This was at a time when there was no federal relief going to this particular segment, still isn't, I guess, but this was in the very beginning when they were completely left out. And we were actually able to provide $500 and $1,000 debit cards to over 7,000 families across the state of New Jersey. But this is an example, and I say this to you all on the phone because this is an example of an organization coming to us, and we found the overlap in our joint missions, and we're able to find a way to help them address what they were concerned about, and also for us to benefit tremendously in the state of New Jersey. We did have some organizations who stepped up and gave alongside this, but where we can align our mission with the mission of others, it's fantastic. And where we are able to, if we are identifying need, we are figuring out what the minimum investment by our fund or in partnership with others will be to actually move the needle within each of these different areas. And then where we are able to raise funds, we can either do more in those individual areas, or we are able to deploy our existing funds in other ways and have a broader reach. So just wanted to get that out there.
Wonderful. Could you talk a little bit about PPE? I know, Josh, you touched on it. Is there an emphasis on the personal protective equipment that is needed as we move forward with reopening the state?
It's an interesting, we spent early on, our number one priority, we tried to triage, and our thinking was what can we do to stop the spread? And PPE obviously comes front of mind. And we found that we didn't add any value there. There were so many people looking for PPE. It was well understood. There was funding. It was supply chain issues. And so we did not make that our priority. It wasn't something that we added particular value to. It will continue to be critical. And so it should stay front of mind. But no, we do not have a specific PPE initiative at this time.
So we know, hopefully, this crisis will come to an end at some point. Are there any key takeaways from this experience that you can see moving forward, having brought all of these extraordinary groups together, where you'll see, I'm assuming you'll be disbanding at some point, or do you foresee this continuing in some way moving into the future?
So I think that you should know, when we set this up originally back in March, we anticipated that we would tie a bow around this in December, but had no idea at the time what the depth and breadth of the impact would be from this pandemic. So, I think that many of the things that we are funding or will be funded out into the future. There's going to be, for the childcare, this is, for example, if we go forward with this initiative, it's a minimum of a 3-year investment. And so we are just we're gonna weave and bob, and we're gonna do everything we can to impact as many people across the state as possible. And as long as we have the resources and there is a need, then we will stay at it. I say that, I'm committing Josh to that. So hopefully Josh agrees with that.
Josh does. Megan, the other thing, which you can just tell from what we've just talked about, this was all made possible by people who came together in New Jersey committed to help. And our incredible staff and the existing relief organizations and donors all pulled together. And I think, given that we all know that the need is going to continue, just the way Tammy mentioned, what's very hopeful, I think, in terms of going forward, is that we've seen that we can do a lot to impact these areas. And the message that I take away is that if you ask, there are people who are willing to help, and things can get done. And I think that's the thing that we want to leverage and see come from the Pandemic Relief Fund. I think it's what I'm most proud of, in terms of, we will have spent $38 million at least. Hopefully we'll get additional donor partners in some of the projects we described today. For instance, I mentioned, in childcare in particular, something we're really looking to bring in more partners. But each one of those is people who do think about it, and it does raise awareness. They'll also go impact other areas that they support as well. So I think that's the takeaway. This is a work in progress, and we're glad to have played a small part in it.
Wonderful. Well, that's an excellent segue into our next question, posed by Mark Valley, who is the Executive Director of Norwest CAP. Mark asks, given the move toward upstream issues, is there potential impact in the public policy area, for example, state budget, federal policy?
I guess I'll hit that slightly. I'm gonna answer that, Mark, in a slightly different way. Many of the things that we are undertaking are, it's a little bit of a pivot, and we look at both the government and what the government is able to do, and what the on the ground organizations are doing. So two specific examples of ways that budgets and things might be impacted. One, you talk about childcare, which Josh just referenced. The governor has set aside money in the budget to help with childcare in New Jersey. That is filling an immediate need. That is filling an immediate hole. What we are trying to do with our investment in childcare is we're trying to get to a new, innovative way forward that is going to dramatically rethink the space that we are in right now and set us up for huge success down the road. And when I say that, I think that what this pandemic has shown us all is that there are incredible inequities across our state. I think we all knew that. But there is no way that you could put Pandora back in the box now. That they are out there, and we must not just assume that we can do business as usual going forward. So I think childcare is one example of that. Another one, for example, is the digital divide. So whereas Phil had said that, CARES and ESSER money will go to filling the digital divide across our state, the fact of the matter is, by taking money from CARES and ESSER and applying it to, Chromebooks, digital devices, and pop-up devices access, you're essentially robbing Peter to pay Paul, because the PP&E that you just referenced, Megan, I mean, those items will be funded by CARES if the money exists. But if we have to deploy the money and put it into another space, then that's going to obviously impact how the schools are able to get back into motion, and what it looks like down the road. So everything we are doing, we're trying to be smart. We're not trying to either come in and support the government on the one hand and fill in a gap where the government, or not fill in a gap. We are trying to fill in the gap. What we're not trying to do is find ways to raise money to give to the government. That's not our role. That never will be our role. But where we can complement one another, which is honestly the only way our state, our country, our world is going to get by, is if we all come together and figure out how we can make all of our goals aligned. So I hope that answers your question, Mark.
So that's an excellent segue into our next question, which talks about how can companies get involved. In Morris County, we have 28,000 companies of all different sizes, from solopreneurs to multinationals. Volunteer, financial support, who do they call? What does the fund need most at this point in time from corporate Morris County?
All right, do you want to take that, Josh? You want me to
Sure,
start?
I'll jump in. I would encourage folks to go to our website at njprf.org. You can see the things we talked about today, the initiatives that we're driving. They're very specific initiatives, and we need help. We're looking for donor partners and program partners. We're really, this is a collaborative approach. And so people who have insights and skills and abilities, and also people who have funds that can help join, you now have the ability to add some precision to how you have the impact. And if you reach out to us, and you can email me at joshnjprf@gmail.com, and we will connect you to those resources. That's one of the things we just love doing, is connecting resource to the need, and it's real easy. Just call or email.
Also, I want to add on to that and just say, obviously we work with a host of different organizations, foundations, corporations across many different ways. Some of the organizations have donated staff. Some of them have donated PPE. So there's a lot of ways that we do that. I would say, for many organizations, the easiest way to help us is by literally finding some piece of our mission and either restricting funds to that specific space, or giving us funds because we're a nonprofit. So and we are very studious about making sure that the money is going exactly where it should go. And of course, every single penny goes right back out the door. We are not keeping one single penny in the organization to help us with undergirding expenses.
Wonderful. Okay, excellent. So I don't see any other additional Q&A questions. Josh, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the fund, or any parting remarks?
No, I think the only thing I would say again, I think, is a big thank you. I mean, so many people have worked so hard and will continue to fight this fight. And I think also just a debt of gratitude to Tammy, who, with the way we set this up, and the Jersey for Jersey speaks volumes of it, is we really wanted to give everyone an opportunity to help, because they have resources, they have the desire, they have the ability, and what a great gift to be able to help. And I thank Tammy for roping me into this, to recruiting me. It's been an honor, and I think all of us connected this feel that way. So I hope the love and the hard work extends, and thank you to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I'm curious, before I turn to you, First Lady, have other states reached out and asked how they could start a similar type of fund? Because this sounds like an amazing example of how to really, like you said, harness all of the energy of volunteers and wealth in our state.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes,
Oh,
other states
excellent,
have reached out.
excellent.
We I guess the biggest compliment is being copied. So we are thrilled, and we certainly do not think that we have all the answers, but we are definitely putting our heads down every single day and trying to find the best way to make an impact and move the needle across New Jersey. And to reiterate, it is with over 60,000 donors in 6 months. We are really feeling good that we are actually impacting people. You know, if you should see the letters that we get and the notes that accompany donations, where people, I mean, it's everything from a child who had a lemonade stand who gave all their proceeds, or it's
Wow.
some kids from a fraternity who decided that they couldn't get their hair cut and they weren't together anyway. So one person challenged another one: every single dollar you don't spend on haircuts, give it to the Pandemic Relief Fund. There have been T-shirt
Wow.
drives. There have been dance contests. I mean, it's really, this is New Jersey at its very best, and it's not just those of us who are working on it every single day, but it's the people who are being creative to help us come up with the money that we are able to deploy on behalf of those most in need across our state. So it's a massive statewide effort. It's so typically New Jersey, and the Jersey for Jersey event just is epitomized it with the grit and the talent and just the, you know, we have one another's back. So, you know, thank you all, and please step up, step in, lean in, and help us, because we need everybody.
Absolutely. Definitely Jersey Strong. What a wonderful success story of all of us coming together to support fellow New Jerseyans. So thank you for all that you're doing, and to your board, and thank you for being with us today. And we look forward to sharing this video with our members and spreading the good word. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.